The next 7 days are not normal, they are not routine, and they are definitely not random. What happens in the silver market over the next week has the potential to quietly decide the direction of silver for months, maybe even years. Most people won't see it happening. There will be no breaking news alert, no loud headline on mainstream media, no countdown clock on TV. But behind the scenes, big players are already moving, positioning themselves, adjusting exposure, and preparing for a shift that retail investors usually only understand after it's already too late. If you are watching this video right now, you are early, and that matters more than you think. Right now, while everyone is distracted by stocks, crypto noise, political drama, and daily market swings, silver is sitting in a pressure zone. It looks calm on the surface, almost boring to the untrained eye. But calm is exactly what the market looks like before a major move. The most dangerous moment in any market is when nothing seems to be happening, because that's when positions are being built quietly. This is exactly the phase silver is in right now. Before we go any further, let me say this clearly. If you want real nonsense market psychology and macro breakdowns focused on precious metals, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the Metal Mindset channel. We don't chase hype here, we read behavior cycles and money flow. And trust me, what's happening right now in silver is something you don't want to miss, especially over the next 7 days. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. Big money does not move when emotions are high. Big money moves when markets are quiet, volume is low, and retail interest is fading. Institutions, banks, and large funds hate competition. They don't want you excited. They don't want YouTube screaming about silver every day. They want silence, and right now silver is surrounded by silence. Over the next 7 days, several time-based pressures are stacking on top of each other. Futures positioning is tightening. Physical supply signals are getting harder to ignore. Industrial demand is not slowing the way many expected, and at the same time, confidence in paper promises is slowly eroding. None of these things alone would be enough to create a decisive moment. But together, compressed into a short time window, they become dangerous, in a good way if you're positioned early. Think about how major silver moves have happened in the past. They never started with retail excitement. They started with boredom, then confusion, then sudden price movement that didn't make sense to the headlines. And only after that did the narratives change. We are right at the boredom and confusion stage right now. If you look closely at how price is behaving, silver is not collapsing, even when it should. That's important. In weak markets, assets fall easily. In strong markets, bad news gets absorbed. Silver has been absorbing pressure instead of breaking down. That tells you someone is on the other side of the trade, quietly buying, quietly defending levels, without advertising it. Over the next week, traders who understand timing are watching very specific things. They are watching how silver reacts to dollar strength, not what the dollar does, but how silver responds to it. They are watching bond yields, not the headlines about them, but the pace of change. They are watching volatility, not because they expect chaos, but because low volatility is often the setup for violent repricing. This is where most retail investors get trapped. They wait for confirmation. They wait for price to already move. They wait for experts on TV to say it's safe. But by the time silver feels safe, the risk reward is already gone. Big players don't wait for clarity. They position when things feel uncomfortable and uncertain. The next 7 days matter because markets run on cycles, not opinions. Time cycles, settlement cycles, inventory cycles, and liquidity cycles are all overlapping right now. When these cycles align, price doesn't need a big story to move. It only needs a small imbalance. And silver is one of the smallest markets on the planet relative to global capital. That's the part most people underestimate. It doesn't take trillions of dollars to move silver. It takes a change in behavior by a relatively small group of participants. When that happens, price moves fast, and it doesn't ask for permission. Another thing you should understand is that silver is not just a metal, it's a message. When silver starts to move independently, it's usually signaling stress somewhere else in the system. Industrial users need it, investors want it, and governments quietly watch it. When those interests collide, something has to give. Right now, we are seeing signs that physical silver is not as loose as paper markets suggest. Premiums tell stories that charts don't. Delays tell stories headlines won't. When physical demand refuses to disappear, even during periods of price consolidation, it creates tension under the surface. That tension doesn't resolve slowly. It resolves suddenly. Let me be very clear about something. This is not about calling a top or bottom to the exact dollar. This is about understanding probability. The probability that silver remains stuck and boring forever is extremely low. The probability that a decisive move begins quietly, catching most people off guard, is very high. Big players understand something retail doesn't. You don't need to be right forever. You just need to be right at the turn. The next 7 days represent a potential turn, not because of a single event, but because of positioning, timing, and psychology lining up at once. Ask yourself this question honestly. If silver suddenly moves higher next week, will you be surprised, or will it suddenly make sense in hindsight? Markets always make sense after the fact. The goal of Metal Mindset is to help you see the logic before the move. Not after everyone is tweeting about it. And here's where the quietly part matters most. If this move starts, it won't start with fireworks. It will start with small candles. Subtle strength, moves that look meaningless to impatient traders. That's how professionals disguise intent. By the time it looks obvious, the best entries are already gone. This is also why emotions are so dangerous right now. Fear makes people freeze. Boredom makes people quit. Both work perfectly for institutions. The market doesn't need to scare you out of silver. It just needs to bore you out of it. Over the next week, pay attention to how silver behaves when nobody is talking about it. Pay attention to whether dips get bought faster. Pay attention to whether downside momentum feels weaker than upside momentum. These are tells. Quiet tells, but they matter. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know we don't do hype. We do patience and preparation. And preparation means understanding that markets reward those who act before the crowd, not after it. There is also a psychological shift happening. More people are starting to question systems instead of trusting them blindly. That shift doesn't show up in CPI numbers or press releases. It shows up in asset behavior. Silver tends to sniff that shift out early. The next 7 days won't decide silver's future because of a headline. They'll decide it because of what doesn't happen. No collapse, no panic, no breakdown. When markets refuse to fall under pressure, that's often the strongest signal of all. If nothing happens next week, that itself is information. But if something does happen, it will likely happen fast enough that most people won't have time to react properly. That's why awareness now is powerful. This is the phase where you zoom out mentally, stay calm emotionally, and think in probabilities instead of predictions. You don't need certainty. You need readiness. And let me say this directly to you. If you're still here watching this, you're already doing better than most. Attention is the real currency. And you're paying attention at the right moment. As we move closer to the end of this video, I want you to think about one thing. If silver starts moving and you did nothing because it felt boring or unclear, how will that feel in hindsight? Now flip that. If you prepared calmly and nothing dramatic happened immediately, what did you really lose? That asymmetry is where smart positioning lives. This is why the metal mindset exists, not to predict the future perfectly, but to help you think clearly while everyone else is distracted or emotional. We are entering a window where silence matters more than noise, positioning matters more than opinions, and patience matters more than excitement. The next 7 days may pass quietly, or they may mark the beginning of a shift most people will only understand later. Either way, you'll remember this moment. If this video made you think, if it gave you a different perspective on what nothing happening really means, drop a comment below and tell me what you're watching in the silver market right now. I read the comments, and your perspective helps shape future videos. And if you know someone who keeps saying silver is boring or irrelevant, share this video with them. Sometimes one calm explanation is more powerful than 1,000 loud predictions. Stay sharp, stay patient, and keep your mindset strong. This is Metal Mindset, and I'll see you in the next one.